We begin today, chapter 10. Chapter 10 in one word, Oiros, lights. The Kabbalists, they call it light. What did we learn previously? We learned that the divine attributes of God, divine intelligence, divine kindness, compassion, and the Spheroid, the 10 divine attributes, Spheros as they're called, are relative to God. He's infinitely beyond divine attributes. And yet, the paradox is, he's absolutely united in one with them. Now, we said ultimately this is our article of faith, but the alternative says we have to try to understand it a little bit. Now, why do we need to understand this? Why not just have pure faith? It's because Chabad is about understanding, about knowing God, not just believing in God. And the stronger the knowledge in God is, as best as we can to understand, the deeper the faith will be, the deeper the commitment will be. So, let us understand this concept of Spheros. The Alter Rebbe takes it a step further. And I'm going to give some background before we get, some background which will include today's class. So, divine attributes, there's 10. Chachma, Bina, V'das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, that's Chabad. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Chod, Yesod, Malchus. Kindness, strength, beauty/compassion, endurance / triumph, acknowledgement/humility, foundation / connection, and finally Malchus, sovereignty, royalty, kingship. Those are the 10 divine attributes. And of course, we're creating the divine image, so we have that within us. Likewise, as powers of the soul. And from there, that's what we gave a metaphor in the previous 2 chapters. Understanding the way it is within us gives us a little inkling on the way it is in the divine level. Ultimately, it's incomparable because, as we explained, in us, it is a compound. We're compounded of several qualities, powers of the soul. They're part of us, but not absolutely a unified whole oneness, simplistic whole oneness, as it is with God. So we want to take this further to understand it more deeply, and it will give us then a deeper appreciation of the unity and the oneness of God in creation. That's our goal. Because when we can know the Koyach HaPoel B'Nifal, the power of Creator within creation, then God is more real to us, then a mitzvah is more important to us and real, and our relationship with God is on a very different level. So, the Zohar, written by Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, 1700 plus years ago. So he explained that the divine attributes, he gave a metaphor. And so much of Hasidus is in metaphor. Because through a metaphor, a simple reason for a metaphor is when you can't get the idea itself, give a metaphor. So then it brings it a little easier for our minds to grasp the concept. The concept is too abstract, too refined, and we're not so refined, so we need the metaphor. And the metaphors, ultimately, the truth is the whole world is a metaphor for God. God is animating the world every moment. That means everything of the world is nothing but a metaphor. And otherwise, we should be able to see the world that way. So, let us now take this apart in understanding Spheroid. So the Zohar explained that the Sphera gave a metaphor as God's kindness, the right hand. By the way, therefore when we act kind, we give charity with our right hand, not with your left. Now if you're a lefty, then your right hand is your left. Gvura, strength, refrain, left hand. That's how he gave the metaphor. It was extremely anthropomorphic to understand godliness, divine kindness with the right hand. Actually, with this, we get an amazing idea. You know, once heard from a friend of mine, tells a story about his granddaughter who had a doll, and the hand to the doll broke off. And he said to her, "Oh, you must be very sad." She started to laugh. "It's only a doll, it's a plastic hand. It's not real." Then he started to think about himself. Well, and my hand is real. Is it? No, because it could be incapacitated, God forbid. So you can't give your charity because, God forbid, your hand is incapacitated. So who's got a real right hand? Well, what is a hand? A hand means to stretch out, to do an act of kindness. Oh, so God has an outstretched hand. He's always doing kindness. He's always creating the world, something from nothing, an act of his chesed. So he has the real hand. We have a facsimile of his hand. So that's how the Zohar made it very anthropomorphic. Chesed's right hand, Gvura's left hand. Sefiros, compassion, is the body. Netzach is the right foot. Hod is the left foot. And Yesod is the reproductive organ. And there's a lot to go into that, which we will not do that right now. We've done it in other times, and we will do it again. But that's how the Zohar explains Spheroid, divine attributes. Came afterwards the Chakira. Chakira means delving intellectually, philosophically into the teachings of Torah, and trying to give a deeper, or maybe more refined, I don't know if that's the right word, metaphor for divine attributes. And they came up with a word called shefa, which means a flow. Well, as opposed to right hand, right, which is very anthropomorphic to express God's kindness, well, flow is more abstract. It's more ethereal, more appropriate in a sense. Even though they were all appropriate, God forbid not to think for a moment, it's all part of Torah. It's just another metaphor to give us another angle, another way to understand more deeply, yes, but it doesn't take away from that which is more simplistic, God's outstretched hand, which the Torah speaks about, an outstretched hand of God taking us out of Egypt, the ultimate kindness for us. So they say shefa, flow. What is a flow? You have in my trusty mug, you have some water, l'chaim in it, coffee, whatever you want, and you pour. There's a flow, a divine energy of God that's now flowing from above down below. So you get the metaphor, right? In this metaphor, what's in here now transferred elsewhere. The difficulty with this metaphor is there's effort involved. It's not automatic. It's done willfully, but with an effort, an engagement, which suggests then some kind of change. And not only that, what's in here now is moved somewhere else, which means there's a change. Every metaphor ultimately will be lacking something. Why? Because in the end, it's a metaphor for God. God doesn't have any of the restrictions, any of those limitations, so therefore it will be lacking. So what's lacking over here? We can't speak about God influencing, impacting, creating, right? That there's an effort. There's no effort. For me, there's an effort, minimal, but there's an effort right now to engage. It's not automatic. So that's where there's a drawback in that metaphor. Came the Kabbalists, and they said that the divine attributes is to be understood, again, not taking away from the previous metaphors at all. It is just now giving us a more deeper, profound understanding of the concept of divine attributes of Spheros. And they call them Iris, or Orot, light. Now, light, again, there's pros and cons in every metaphor, as I mentioned. So light comes automatic. Light is without effort, coming from the luminary, right? The sun shines automatically, without effort. Rays come from it. So likewise, God, there's no effort in his engagement of creation, which signifies a change. And there isn't, the difficulty with it is that it's, in the metaphor, it has no will, right? The sun has no will, by way of metaphor, with the rays of the sun emitting from it. So there's something lacking there, because God does everything with his divine will. It's not automatic. From here, there are people who made a mistake, including Spinoza, who said, well, yeah, there's a creator, but it's all automatic. It's all the laws of nature, which is automatic. There's nothing greater than that, because it's not done. God creating this moment in his will, with his will. It just is. It just comes like the rays of the sun from the sun. Of course, therefore, nature becomes God. The world becomes God. Pantheism, Spinoza. And of course, a great mistake. That means, yeah, it was all created and all went like the sun is emitting constantly, and no change. That's a mistake. But again, because the metaphor is a metaphor of God, and therefore there's always going to be something lacking in the metaphor. But this is what the Kabbalists use. And it is the closest metaphor that we can have to understanding the divine attributes, because it is something of the essence, coming from the essence. You recognize its source in the essence, right? As opposed Shefa, when I'm pouring from here into another cup, my hand, when it's here, first of all, it changed places, and secondly, I don't know where it came from. For all intents and purposes, it was always in this cup, right? Sorry, I should add another cup here. But the light that emits from the sun, of course you recognize where it came from. You know it has a source. But the metaphor goes further. Light in its source is called what? Sun? The globe of the sun? It's not called rays of light. The divine attributes are within the sun, within God. As we had mentioned in the previous chapter, that the divine attributes are totally, absolutely unified in an absolute whole, perfect oneness with God. So what's the metaphor for that? The rays of the sun within the sun are perfectly bound up with the sun. You don't call it rays of sun within the sun. You'll only call it a ray once it leaves the sun. So from God's perspective, though, they are completely whole one. Our perspective is not that way. It's like the rays that left the sun. And therefore, we call it a specific name. We call this Chokhmah, divine wisdom. We call this Chesed, divine kindness. Sefiros, divine compassion, and so on and so forth. Because from our perspective, we don't see it as a whole simplistic oneness. We're not capable of understanding, experiencing that, knowing that. So we see, and we can make it obviously the mistake of different forces, but it's not obviously different forces, but we call it something different. From God's perspective as his divine wisdom, I'm going to use my divine wisdom right now. I'm going to use my, divine kindness right now. No, because it's perfect whole oneness. It's him, simply stated. It's just him. It's not even got a name, but him. Even that, you can't even say him. That is giving us a little understanding, a little more understanding about him, about God, on how to understand his divine attributes with the metaphor of or light. How that plays itself out in creation, those divine attributes. We'll get a little more intriguement tomorrow. Great preparation for Gimel Tammuz for the 26th Yortzeit of our dear Rebbe. And as I mentioned, there is going to be an amazing gathering tonight on Facebook, YouTube. It's going to be on our page. I put it up. I'm going to put it up again. Where did I put it? Okay. Folks, give me one moment. My apologies. That didn't work. Okay, so as I mentioned, I don't know why. I'm going to put it again. Tonight, Rabbi Manis Friedman, Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, speaking about equality, race, and destiny. It's going to be something extraordinary. Oops. And I put it up again, chabadzuchrin.com/Rebbe. Please do join us for this special event tonight. We'll have Thursday also, full day of learning. Send you more about that. In the meantime, we're going to say hello to Clem. Oh, Clem, that's very kind of you. Wanting to send some tzedakah. So chabadzuchrin.com. You should get the donate over there. That's very kind of you. And others have also done that. It's very kind. Vavyud, shalom. And Ruth, good morning. Erica from Norway, good afternoon. Susan from Scranton, Pennsylvania, thank you for joining. Paula from California. And Karen, hello to you in Miami. Sudisbet, I'm sure I got that wrong. Thank you. And Karen from LA. Rostin from, or Solly, perhaps, from South Africa, I think. Okay. Okay, thank you. Very kind. Martin, thank you for joining. Thank you. Heather from Norway, Connecticut. Good morning as always, Ariel. Good afternoon to you. Where? Ella in Arizona, good morning. Una from Iowa. Pablo from Florida, Chodesh Tov. And Shalom from Haifa, from Tegzelan. I'm sure I got that wrong. I'm sorry. From Texas, Omar. Susanna, Mustafa, thank you for joining. Folks, sharing is caring. Please share the Alter Rebbe's teachings with others. Spread the light, the flow, and the divine kindness. Have a wonderful day, a good Chodesh, a good month. Today's the first day of the month of Tammuz. And again, Wednesday night, Thursday is going to be Gimel Tammuz. And many things happening. Please stay tuned. Have a wonderful day.